On today's show, we update you on the QMJHL and USHL with our recent finds. We'll talk about that on today's episode of Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Haddock Helikesh, QMJHL and Crossover Scout for Elite Prospects, with Sebastian High, USHL and Crossover Scout for Elite Prospects. And on today's show, we'll be updating you on the QMJHL and USHL 2025 NHL draft classes. We'll be talking first and foremost about the guys we like, the guys that we've kind of grown on over the past couple of weeks. I'll start. Well, Sebastian will start off with the USHL in the first segment. I'll go with QMJHL prospects in the second segment, and in the third segment, we'll talk about some late round finds, some guys that have popped up on our radars that we've really liked in recent games. Before we get into any of that, though, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. If you're watching on YouTube, as usual, remember to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the episode, and if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please leave us a rate and review, and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. So let's start off with the USHL prospects that have kind of stood out in recent games. Talk me through your kind of guys that have impressed you over the last couple of games and have been kind of standing out, and kind of, you know, the guys you're higher on than consensus so far in the USHL. Take it away.
Yeah, I guess we'll start off with just a hulking defenseman who we talked about, I believe, 2 episodes ago. Jacob Rombach. He's a 6'6", 201-pound left shot defenseman who plays for the Lincoln Stars in the USHL. And this is a player who uses his physicality very intelligently. He has one of the longest reaches in this entire draft class and leverages that to contain play like few other players in this class can. Really a capable physical player that I think is more than deserving of the B grade that he got from NHL Central Scouting. He's a player that I would start to look at as of like the 40th overall pick range. He's certainly a defensively capable player who's committed to the University of Minnesota next season, which is a really good place for him to be developing. And he's not overly dynamic offensively. He really is a conservative player in terms of cheating for defense. But in terms of just hulking defensemen and what makes them tick, what makes them work at the NHL level, I think that Jacob Rombach has a really solid foundation at this point in his development, and certainly a player I think deserves to be talked about a little bit more, because so far he's not been ranked by a single public outlet in any capacity, and that's going to change by the time our next Elite Prospects rankings come around. I'll be definitely pushing for him in the second round, but yeah, he's a player I really appreciate. Next, there's a player that I've grown on over the past couple months, and that's from the NTDP, Cole McKinney, a player I saw ranked in like the top 15 range by some like July or June boards, and did not see that level of play whatsoever with this player. But he's been playing some really effective hockey this season. He's strong in the faceoff circle. He's strong in the penalty kill, really good two-way player at even strength, and the chemistry that he's been building with Jack Murtagh, who in my opinion has been the best player for the NTDP so far this year, has been fantastic. It's been like the real only pairing of like high-end chemistry that has been seen in that lineup so far this season. And just two very intelligent players that play the game the right way, are not afraid of playing through contact or initiating contact. And what I like about him in the offensive zone is he's a very simple player. He picks good plays consistently. He doesn't try to make the best plays all the time. He's not going to be a top 6 NHLer, I don't think. But in terms of a potential third line center who can help out at both ends of the ice, can win important draws, is also a pretty good shooting threat from medium range in the offensive zone. I think he's a really solid prospect. But in terms of a player that I love to watch, but I cannot be quite as high on as consensus, and someone that you've certainly watched a decent amount as well so far, Adam Benák. He's a very interesting prospect, 5'7", undersized centerman, 161 pounds, insanely high motor. He's got that dog in him. He's skilled, really good handling ability, just constantly working his butt off, and also a really impressive playmaker quite regularly at the USHL level, but is so restricted to the perimeter. I'm getting a lot of Jordan Dumais vibes from this player at even strength, at least in the offensive zone. He struggles mightily to get into the middle lane, and even playing into the middle lane in terms of passing into it. He's been struggling at the USHL level in terms of deceiving defenses to open up passing lanes into high danger areas. It just hasn't quite gotten there so far this season with Youngstown. He has 10 points in 14 games so far, playing first line minutes there. But what have you seen from Adam Benák, and where do you maybe see him landing on draft day? Because in terms of publicly available rankings, there's not a single one that, apart from elite prospects, that doesn't have him in that first round range.
Yeah, I think the consensus was because of Benák's dominance at international levels, whether it's Salinka for a couple of years now, whether it's the U18 Worlds, he's always been a dominant force internationally. And the expectation was, well, he's going to move to the USHL, which isn't the strongest of leagues, and he's going to just run the show. And he just fundamentally hasn't. He gets pushed outside very easily, like you mentioned, very peripheral so far. The skill hasn't translated as well and isn't really high end yet. You can get, when we talk about puck skills, we're thinking, when it comes to these undersized guys, dynamic, high-paced decisions, quick moves inside contact, cutting across defenders' hands. I haven't really seen all that much on that side from Benák. He's just been kind of lackluster in terms of skill. But again, the intensity's there, the motor's there, the understanding of the game, the hockey sense is there. He just can't leverage his skills right now. So that's kind of been the main issue with Benák. But there's other guys in this range as well. We're talking about Luka Radivojevic as well as a prospect who just moved over to the USHL. Currently the best puck moving defenseman in the USHL, in my opinion. But that's a very, very low bar. I don't really think that really says much about whether or not Radivojevic is a first rounder. I don't see him as a first rounder yet. Do you?
No, I see him as like a second, third range guy, a second, third round range player. At the moment, he's my highest ranked C grade that I have on my USHL board. I love watching him play. He's a fantastic skater. The way that he's able to match footwork off the rush is one of the better ones in this draft class. In all honesty, the gap control is really strong, but he's 5'10", 165 pounds. He can really be physically overwhelmed despite having pretty solid leverage mechanics as a right shot defenseman. There's a lot to like with this player, especially the passing ability, I think is really good, but there's a lack of dynamism in his on-puck engagement, and I think that's something that will really hold him back. If he were this dynamic offensive creator that can just absolutely champion a rush, lead the offense from the blue line, then I might see a first-round player here, but without that necessary pop offensively, I don't know what he turns into as a truly impactful piece in the NHL. He's a solid puck mover. He can be a second pairing power play quarterback just fine, without necessarily being elite in that facet. And defensively, sure, there's like some decent rush defending habits and stuff, but in terms of the cycle, he can really get boxed out very easily. And yeah, there's definitely still a lot of question marks around this player. But as you mentioned, he's a fantastic puck mover, especially at the USHL level. But in terms of the NHL projection, I have more questions than answers at this point in my scouting process with this player. And yeah, I have a lot of appreciation for how he plays the game, but in terms of translating that into a top 4 NHL role, I don't know. I think you're looking of if he makes the NHL a number 5 puck mover that you put out on the ice against lesser competition and has some really interesting plays that he can like execute where you'd always wish to see a little bit more out of him. But yeah, in terms of like the lack of offensive dynamism, I think that's a real limiting quality with his overall projection. But the last player I want to talk about here in this segment is another NTDP centerman, Andrew O'Neill, a player that just hasn't been talked about whatsoever. He's also not been ranked by any board so far this season, but that is going to change. He's a solid skater, really good two-way player. He plays with consistent pace. He's constantly linking play between his wingers, and which is something that you just haven't been seeing much of in the NTDP this season. And at 6'1", 185 pounds as a right shot centerman, he's a good frame. And overall, he's quite refined and polished. He's only scored 10 points in 18 games so far with the NTDP, but the only player that's been over a point a game has been Jack Murtagh. There just hasn't been all that much offense from this group so far this season. And as a potential third, fourth line centerman at the end of the day in the NHL, I think he could do a lot worse than Andrew O'Neill, and I think that he's certainly entrenching himself as a B grade prospect in this draft class. But that wraps things up here for our first segment. In the next one, we're going to be taking a look at Hattie's neck of the woods in the QMJHL with 5 notable players that we just haven't discussed all that much so far this season. But first, we have a quick word from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just have to pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineup stay in place even if one of your players goes down injured. If your player leaves after the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Do you think that Connor McDavid can score more than 0.5 goals this week? Austin Matthews even more than that? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this hockey season when you and your crew run your game on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
If you're looking to buy cheap tickets last minute to any event, Game Time is the best place to get them. Game Time is safe, secure, incredibly easy to use, and they are obsessed with saving you money. They've got deals at every step of the way, last minute deals, flash deals, zone deals. They even have the Game Time guarantee to make sure you always get the best price for your tickets. And now they also have all-in pricing that you can toggle in the app in order to see the final price for your tickets after fees, after taxes, after all of that stuff, so you know exactly what you're paying for, and you can make the best decision for your wallet. My schedule changes around a ton, so I find myself with an afternoon free pretty much all the time every week, and it's fun to just pull up Game Time, see what's going on in your area. Within 2 clicks, you've got a ticket, even if it's an hour before the event starts. And you can just go and scan your QR code to get in the game. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, it's super simple. You just create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Alrighty, so moving on to our second segment here, we'll be talking about the QMJHL prospects that have stood out to me in recent viewings. Some prospects that have gotten higher on, that have been more convinced about their upside, all that kind of stuff. We'll start off with the big names. First and foremost, Justin Carbonneau. I'll skip the top guy in my list, which is Caleb Desnoyers. We all know at this point he's going to be the first QMJHL prospect picked out at the 2025 NHL draft. My opinion on him hasn't changed, but my opinion on Justin Carbonneau has changed a ton. I was really not convinced with this game at the start of the year. I watched his tape last year, didn't really see it. This year, he was even more frustrating, making really bad decisions with the puck, whether it's, passing to teammates that are covered by 3 guys, whether it's trying to deke through a whole sea of opponents on its way to the net. It seems like a lot of his decisions were just hero puck hockey and just trying to overwhelm guys with his speed, with his physicality, with his handling skill, but it wasn't working. But so far in the last month or two, he's really progressed in that area. He's gone much, much better at kind of manipulating defenses with his shooting threat and using his passing in order to connect plays. He's gone way better in terms of handling decisions as well. He's not trying to force plays through a sea of opponents. I've been much, much more impressed with his tape lately, mainly because of the hockey sense improvements. I saw his hockey sense as a 4 grade, which is way below average. in our AP grading scale. Now it's about a 5. He still has his moments where he struggles with some decisions, but it's not as egregious and terrible as it was last year or at the start of this year. So the progression on that side has made him, in my opinion, a top 20 lock. Right now, he's an A grade prospect for me. He's in the 12 to 20 range of the 2025 NHL draft class for me. Just a very, very reliable player now with the skill to back it up. Incredibly fast, incredibly physical in terms of his frame, the way he uses it along the boards. But on top of that, he's got a ridiculous shot, really, really good playmaking tools, and some of the best hands in the draft. I think he's the most manipulative handler in the queue right now. And I don't think it's even particularly close. He's really, really good at that. On the other side of that, we also have Bill Zonnon, who plays for Rouyn-Noranda in the QMJHL. He's 6'1.5", 185. I think he might be bigger than that. He looked bigger than that live for sure. And he's a big boy who uses his frame incredibly liberally. He loves to throw his body around. He plays with a ridiculous amount of intensity. And for me, he's possibly the best playmaker of this QMJHL batch. He is so good at making plays at full speed, in motion, or from a standstill. He's able to find opponents behind his back with ridiculous passes. He connects plays incredibly fluidly. I really, really love his playmaking game, and he has some goal-scoring tools as well. But what makes Bill Zonnon kind of a lower-end prospect in terms of not being a true first-rounder so far, and kind of being on the cusp of it, or in between, late first, early second, is the skating. His skating is really tough. He struggles to get to accelerate from a standstill. He takes 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 strides to get it to his full speed. It's a pretty rough acceleration, and it's due to the lack of edge work and refinement in his mechanics that happens. At the same time, with Zonnon, he plays with such an intensity and a physical snarl to his game, and he's so constantly well positioned, and he's such a good playmaker that you think he has the skill set to overcome a lack of foot speed. He has the things you look for, from a prospect in order to overcome that lack of speed and agility. And that's why he's in my first round. Late in my first round, sure, in the 25 to 35 range, but he's in my first round so far. You also have Zachary Morin, who his move from the USHL to the QMJHL has done absolute wonders for his draft stock. He was honestly not a top 64 prospect for me when he's playing in the USHL. He
was bad in the
He was
USHL.
terrible, right?
He was not good.
Yeah, exactly. But since then, he moved to the St. John Sea Dogs in the QMJHL and has been absolutely phenomenal since then. He's done wonders for his draft stock, like I said. Right now, he's my 6th ranked QMJHL prospect. He is 6'1.5", 176 pounds. And he plays really well in transition. He's really good at connecting plays, give and goes, little area passes in order to set up his teammates. Really, really good playmaker. Really good on the power play as well, in terms of finding seam passes and consistently hitting them. So I've been a big fan of his game for a while. The prospect I don't really see talked about too much, who I mentioned at the start of the year as possibly a late riser for the QMJHL. Phillippe Veilleux, who plays for the Val d'Or Foreurs in the QMJHL. He's undersized for sure. He's about 5'9", 165 pounds. He's a left shot center / winger. And he's in my 60 to 80 range. So he's still not a bona fide top 64 prospect for me. He's still a C-grade prospect. But I really like the playmaking skill. I really like the net front goal scoring skills, the ability to get to the middle, find some space in the mid slot. And what's been really interesting with him that I've really grown to like is just how quickly he goes from pass reception to shot. He's really good at setting up his body in intelligent ways in order to corral a pass and just catch and release really quickly. So the combination of playmaking, handling, goal scoring with the off-puck intelligence is good. It's just undersized prospect, not an elite skater. Those don't tend to go in the top 64, especially not from the QMJHL. So that's my read on him. We have our first defenseman on this list as well, Owen Conrad, who I've talked about a couple times on the podcast. 6'2", left shot defenseman, plays for Charlottetown. Dependable, reliable, physical, two-way defenseman who's been growing his offensive game. He's now on the second power play for Charlottetown, and I feel like he dictates play really well. He's still a bit overly reliant on his shot from the blue line to create. Not necessarily the type of guy who's going to move laterally and find passing lanes and that kind of stuff. He's not a true blue line manipulator, but he makes simple, effective plays from the blue line that leads to goals in the queue. On top of being a great skater, a big body, defensively reliable, always in the right spots, always cross-checking guys after whistles and getting involved in scrums, showing some snarl. He's got a lot of facets to his game. He's a multifaceted defenseman, and I would not be surprised at all if a team sees that skill set and picks him in the first round. But lastly, for this segment, we're going to talk about Justin Carbonneau's center, Mateo Nobert, who's also a QMJHL draft eligible for this year. He is 6 foot, 166 pounds. The real standout trait with Nobert is the skating, is the playmaking. He's a really, really good playmaker, connects plays incredibly well. For me, he's a 6.5 grade in terms of playmaking skill. Really good at stringing together plays with quick reads, quick decisions. The skating's an issue, and at 166 pounds, even though the physical details are there, he engages contact proactively, he gets under opponent's sticks, leverages his weight really well along the boards. He's still weak, and that really shows up in his physical game. So as a not physically dominant, not particularly fast center, average size, I really like the playmaking skill, the hints of goal scoring as well, but I don't think it's going to be enough to make him a bona fide top 64 pick. He's in my late top 64, somewhere in the 60s, but I don't think teams are going to be very, very sold on his upside coming out of the queue there. But that's our second segment done. We'll get into our third segment here, where we talk about some late finds that we found this year in the QMJHL and the USHL. But before that, just a quick word from our sponsors at FanDuel.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need all in one place to place live bets on the NFL. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, do live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you place your bets. Whether you want to take those swings on the NFL and American football, or maybe you prefer European football with the Champions League now going in full swing, or even golf or tennis. And of course, if you're listening to this podcast, there's a decent chance that hockey is your sport of choice. Whatever floats your boat in the sporting world, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Alrighty, so let's close things off here with our late round finds out of the QMJHL and USHL. Some guys that have popped up on our radars late and we've started to really like, whether they're potential 6th, 7th rounders or potential mid round picks. They'll make this segment. We've got 2 each to talk about here. Talk me through your first 2 from the USHL, the guys that you've started liking here so far, late. We're in November, but not from the start of the year, right?
Yeah, for sure. So these 2 are actually teammates and players that have played on the same line. Well, kind of teammates. One of them is currently on a stint with the NTDP, and let's start with him, Mason Moe. He's a 6'1", 185-pound left shot forward. He's played at center and on the wing this season. I much prefer him on the wing. He's a blistering skater, like a clear 6.5 grade skater. Moves around the ice really dynamically. When he's at center, I think that the defensive habits really let him down. He stays really high up in the defensive zone. And cheats for offense, which you don't really want from your centers. But on the wing, he's really quite dynamic. A good basis of puck skills. Quite a lot of creativity as well with a puck on his stick, and I really love his pace, especially of decision making specifically. He's deceptive with the puck and is really able to sell certain plays, going the other way, get the puck back on a give and go, quickly move the puck around the offensive zone. He's a really quick thinker and is able to play at that speed with his feet and his hands, which is something that I really like to see. And this season, he scored 7 points in 12 games for the Madison Capitals, as well as 3 goals in 6 games for the NTDP. So the production hasn't blown the doors off so far this season, but the skill, the tools are all very, very good. The other player is a bit less toolsy, and I think a bit even more intelligent almost than Mason Moe is, and that is Ryker Lee, a player who's in his rookie season in the USHL. He was playing prep school hockey with Shattuck St. Mary's last year, where he scored 99 points in 57 games. And this year, he's been nearly a point a game as well. He's one of the top scoring rookies in the USHL with 14 points in 15 games. He's not a very good skater as a 6 foot, 181-pound right shot forward. He very much is a winger as well, just like Mason Moe is. But he has a wicked shot, really decent handling skill, physically solid. He's very difficult to knock off the puck. And overall, the puck just seems to stick to his blade, even through intense pressure. The one big drawback with him is skating. It very much is a juxtaposition between him and Mason Moe in terms of skating ability. Ryker Lee reminds me a little bit of Adar Suniev in terms of his offensive toolkit paired with the skating ability, because the skating really does let him down, but he's intelligent enough to compensate. He has a high degree of offensive tools as well, to compensate for the skating ability. But he's a player I really quite appreciate. I think Mason Moe is probably a late second, third round player. Ryker Lee, more of the third round guy, and he might be available into the fourth or fifth round. And I think if he's there, he's more than worth a swing, because the tools are good, the intelligence is good. He's made a very seamless transition to the USHL there with Madison. And I've been very impressed with my early season viewings here. But talk me through your QMJHL guys, because you have a couple here. Who you want to start with of your pair?
Absolutely. I'll start with a guy I honestly haven't heard anyone hype up so far this year, and it's Maddox Labré. He's been very, very interesting for me so far. A kind of mobile defenseman who actually plays a very reliable defensive game as well. Very impressive prospect overall. I have in my honorable mentions in my C grades of my top 15 rankings that are out on Blue Sky if you want to check that out. He has an 07 birthday, 6'2", 180 pounds. He plays for Victoriaville in the QMJHL. Victoriaville isn't really the best team, which has made watching them a bit difficult. But I mainly went to watch Victor live when they were playing in Blainville, and mainly went to watch Gabriel Daigle, who's the goaltender for Victoriaville, and ended up being a lot more impressed with Maddox Labré overall. Very, very reliable defenseman, very mobile, very active as well, constantly jumps into plays and joins the rush as a fourth attacker, and he's really good at it. He times it well. He doesn't overdo it. I think he's pretty limited in terms of skill, but he's really good at everything that's decisional about his current level of hockey. He applies really well, defends the rush really well with his motions, with his movement, and with his ability to match footwork. So overall, he's been a very impressive defenseman for me so far. Even though the point totals aren't particularly there, he's still a very interesting prospect. And as a June birthday for this draft class is pretty young. So there's a lot to work with here with Maddox Labré. And the other one I've seen talked about a tiny bit is Nathan Brisson. He's the 15th prospect ranked in my top 15 of the QMJHL draft eligibles. He's from Val d'Or, just like Phillippe Veilleux, who we just talked about. 5'10", 174 pounds, and he is an absolute workhorse. You talk about prospects who have that dog in him. He has got that dog in him. He outworks every opponent on every shift. He's currently the first line center and the captain for the Val d'Or Foreurs. He's an early birthday for this draft here. He's in September 22nd, 06 birthday, which means that if he was born 7 days earlier, he would have been eligible for the 2024 NHL draft instead. So he's really old for the draft class, but everything in his game just oozes maturity. And I've seen prospects that are old for the draft class not be particularly mature, right? I don't think that really has much to do with it. And Brisson last year was pretty much the same player. Very mature, every decision being the right one, very reliable, very energetic, constantly engaging his team in ways that uplifts the entire line and allows everyone on the ice and the guys on the bench to feel like the next shift is going to build momentum. So in games where he'll get 1 point out of the 6 or 7 goals that Val d'Or will score, he's still the one building momentum for the other line to come in and produce. I've really liked that aspect of this game. Very intense, very reliable. Again, he's a captain as a draft eligible. That's for a reason. Val d'Or isn't the best team, and they're pretty much out of options in terms of people to ice, right? They don't have the deepest lineup, but Brisson, Phillippe Veilleux, these guys have been phenomenal for them so far this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if a team looks at Brisson's intensity, contagious leadership, and decides to select him in a 6th, 7th round. He's undersized, doesn't skate the best, and isn't necessarily the most refined in terms of skill, but the intensity's there, the maturity's there, the desire to be physical's there. I think there's something to work with here. And if I'm an NHL team, I'm looking at him in a 6th, 7th round position to pick him up. In terms of a project pick, a guy who can play fairly quickly in the NHL, I think he's got it. But that wraps it up for today's show. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the episode and what you want us to talk about next. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please leave us a rate and review, and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today to get all your news and updates about what's going around sports. Then make sure to tune in for our future shows as we continue our prospect coverage for the month of November. This has been Haddock Kalakesh with Sebastian High, and we hope you tune in next time.